Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Ship It and Sip It. Today, I'm delighted to welcome a new founder and new guest to our digital studio, Maya Aravapalli. She is the founder of InterviewJam and a data scientist and a keen fan of building in public. So I'm happy to talk with you today, Maya. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks, John. Thanks for having me.
All right. So today we're going to talk about your experience building InterviewJam, more specifically about how you built it with Bubble, the no-code app builder tool. Also about balancing full-time work and building in public and what your experience has been like so far with all of that. So just to start off, I guess, what was your inspiration for InterviewJam?
Yeah, so I was just getting into my founder journey and wanting to build things. And during the same time, I was just getting out of the rotational program that I was in right out of university. So I was in the position where I had to look for a full-time job. And one of the biggest struggles I found was, I have so many different applications and so many different interviews. Like, how do I prepare effectively for each one? And I was like, there has to be a better process for this. And, also during that time, I was actively interviewing other people, and I saw that a lot of people had been missing out on opportunities because of the lack of preparation. So I wanted to build InterviewJam to kind of solve this problem of preparing efficiently with AI. So that was my own original inspiration for InterviewJam. And, it's been a great journey. And I also brought in a co-founder now, so that's pretty cool. So yeah.
Very neat. We have a lot of founders who are just starting out with their new idea in a program that we're running right now called Nano Grit. And that is a lead in to our boot camp, which is a lead in to our accelerator. So I'd love for you to give them a little bit of, I don't know if it's advice yet, but perspective on what it was like when you just started InterviewJam out. How did you get feedback? And what did the idea validation process look like?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I do want to say, when I first started, I had no idea what I was doing. And I was really grateful to kind of find resources. I joined Reforge, the product management courses, which helped me kind of learn more about user research and how to conduct them. So was really grateful to find stuff like that. In terms of validating the idea for InterviewJam, I mainly focused on, because it started off with a problem which I faced. I talked to other people who were having the problem, especially students from my university who were, about to graduate. So that was more qualitative research I did. I also conducted a survey to kind of get a better understanding of quantitative kind of research. And in addition to that, my co-founder is a career coach in kind of the university I went to. So she's kind of coached hundreds of students when they're preparing for interviews. And I got feedback from her in the career services from my university. So that's just some of the ways I validated the idea. And in regards to kind of advice or anything, I just feel the biggest thing is to just get started and take action, because I think one of the biggest mistakes I made was I knew I wanted to build something. I knew I wanted to be a founder, but I spent a lot of time just reading and kind of learning instead of just actively applying. And then one day I was I found Bubble, and I just kind of was I'm going to learn it. And when I started learning and kind of building, that's when I made the most progress. And, I probably may have not built InterviewJam if I didn't take that first step of taking action.
Super. Yeah, that's really good advice. I guess it would be good to give a bit of perspective in terms of timeline here. So when did you really finalize the idea or say that you wanted to build InterviewJam, and what kind of time frame was there from that point to when I guess the MVP was launched in April?
Yeah, it was late March, April. And yeah, so I started learning Bubble around last August. So August 2022. And it took me a while to actually learn it. So it was I was just playing around with the platform and things, and I was trying to gain the skills. So that was from August to maybe a couple months after that. So maybe November timeframe. So I started building the MVP around November. And, it was a lot of trial and error, a lot of iterating, a lot of just kind of figuring things out. So I decided I feel when you're building something for the first time, it's so easy to kind of over engineer and kind of want to make it perfect. So I decided I'm going to just, I've built like something good. I'm just going to launch it. So around, I guess, like February, I decided I'm going to start launching. So that was like all the product hunt, launch prep, and kind of getting active, which I know we're going to talk about. So, so I would say it's like nearly a year now. Like, it's almost August. I guess it's May. So not really, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. So I guess we can take a moment here to dive into the bubble process a little bit. Why did you choose that tool specifically? And what were some of the challenges that you found in learning how to use it and then learning how to build the product that you wanted to build with it?
Yeah. And I think, like I was kind of learning about no code tools at the same time. So like I was looking at Webflow, I was looking at like some other platforms. And the reason I kind of landed on Bubble was I feel like it had kind of like the all-in-one solution, like with the database, like kind of like everything there for me to build. It was definitely more difficult, and a lot of people had asked me like, why did you start with Bubble? Because it's one of the most complex platforms to learn. But I think it was also the most comprehensive, and I kind of knew that if I spent the time learning it, I could kind of build anything I wanted, or at least almost anything. So that's why I chose Bubble. And one of the biggest challenges I faced when I started using Bubble was I didn't really have an idea of like, there's the front end of like, the visual kind of side of it, and then there's the back end workflows. And I know like optimizing the workflows are more important now, but that's something I didn't even think about when I was starting. I think it was just like the getting the layout and kind of the design and learning how to kind of like use the elements in the most efficient way. It was definitely like a really big learning curve. Like I think it was super hard for me to even do the smallest things like, container layouts and everything. But I think the biggest challenge was like just keep going with it, because I feel like oftentimes it's like, especially when you're starting a product or building a product that's like so early, there's so many things you have to iterate and change. And I think once you build something and you kind of figure something out and you have to change it literally the next day, I think it's like staying motivated to do that. But I think it's a great platform. I think the database design is another challenge, because you want to make sure that like you have to think through what kind of data you need to collect from the users and how to most efficiently store that data. And repeating groups were like my worst roadblock, like in Bubble, like in how to display that data from the database. So it's like little hurdles, but like once you get past it, you can pretty much like, I feel like I'm confident to build a lot of things now. So it's definitely worth learning.
Very cool. And I guess when you were learning Bubble, I know that Webflow has a pretty comprehensive learning resource university, they call it, I think, on Webflow. Does Bubble provide a lot of those resources as well, or are there other places where you went to learn more when you were starting out?
Yeah, so Bubble has like a forum, like a Bubble forum where you can kind of ask questions, kind of people are usually quick to respond on there. But I think I gained the most from like YouTube and like watching other people build other things and just kind of taking little elements from that to my own product. I think especially because like there's so many different kinds of apps that are being built, and so much of what you build is going to be specific to your app. You just kind of have to find the next best thing on YouTube and trying to find it. And that's kind of why I started my YouTube channel. Like, even though it might not be applicable to everybody, it's like just getting people there faster than I got there. So YouTube is like a great resource for Bubble, I think, more than actually the docs or anything, which I probably shouldn't say, but yeah.
Okay. Since you mentioned it, can you just give a little shout out to your YouTube channel if you'd like people to go and watch? Is it mostly about how to build stuff with Bubble or other no-code tools? What's there?
Yeah, it's just, I'm just getting started, and it's just basically like little Bubble tutorials of like things that I kind of learned the hard way. Like, like I have one which is like how to integrate Chat GPT with your Bubble app, or kind of how to import designs into Bubble from Figma. So it's like little things that I took maybe an hour or two to figure out or more, and I just kind of delivered in like less than 10 minutes. So it's called Build with
Awesome.
Maya. Yeah.
Build with Maya. All right. I'll drop the link for that in the show notes. Okay, so you mentioned that you have brought on a co-founder at some point. I'm curious, I guess I'm always interested in founder dynamics. It's a very important part of startups. So when did that happen, and why did you feel like it was the right move?
Yeah, so like my co-founder Renee, she's kind of been part of the process all throughout. Kind of started off as like an advisor, and I think the key is like we kind of came to an agreement that like when you do have a co-founder, sometimes when things go wrong, like the relationship kind of falls apart. So we kind of like made sure that like we're friends first, and then like kind of any kind of obstacles that we face, like we kind of have to like kind of agree that we're friends. And she's like great. She's definitely like she's built several products in the past, and she's currently like the director of like master's program. So it's a little bit like like an odd relationship, but it works for this product. And I'm really excited to see what we're gonna like build further with InterviewJam together.
Awesome. Well, so far, you mentioned on Twitter the end of last month, from March 25th to April 25th, you got 500 signups. And I guess, was that more or less or about what you were expecting? And sort of what was your reaction to that sort of traction?
Yeah, no, I was super happy. I think, it was, I didn't really have any expectations, like I just kind of like put it out there. I kind of wanted to see how it would do. I did all the prep work, but I kind of went into it saying like, I'm already accomplished something. I'm just going to put it out there and hopefully it helps people. So it was definitely like more than I expected, I guess. But I think the biggest thing was like, I think the product hunt launch was, you can think of it two ways. You can either think of it as like the first kind of momentum builder, or you can kind of think of it as like a momentum continuer. Like you already have some momentum going and then you launch on product hunt to kind of keep it going. So the product hunt launch, I kind of used it as like kind of like a momentum starter. So we got like the first 100 signups from the launch. And then as like, after the launch happened and, we tried to keep that momentum going. And I think we did a pretty good job of it. Like, that's why I think the 400 other the 400 other signups came onto the platform. And I think the key is really figuring out like if you want to use launch as a continuer or a builder, and or like starter. Sorry, I don't know why I said builder. I think I used the word build too much, but but yeah, I think it's I think the key is like keeping it going, and that's something we're kind of trying to do. It's definitely slowed down a bit, and it's just about like what other strategies you have to use to kind of keep it going. So yeah.
Very cool.
Sorry.
And yeah, it's all good. Very cool. And what, in terms of momentum, what were a few of your other channels that you used to sort of share? Were you mainly on Twitter? I noticed you have a Medium blog that's, you've not been writing a lot of articles in there, but were there any other tactics or channels that you used to find those first users?
Yeah, I think Twitter, like, so I actually like did not know about building in public or anything like that until like pretty much launch of my product. So I wasn't really going through that full journey of building in public or building InterviewJam in public. But I think, after the launch, when I first started like kind of discovering more about it, I kind of started posting more about InterviewJam, and also like, using other kind of channels. Like, I started hosting like kind of like live streams where I talk about like where Renee and I get together and we talk about how like InterviewJam can help you with your interview prep, and also like just general advice for job hunters. So just trying to test out different channels, and like I kind of posted on all the like directories where it's like AI tools, and then see like if they approve it, and then it's just another area where people can find you. And yeah, still thinking through how to kind of grow it a little bit, but yeah.
Nice. So in terms of building in public and I guess mostly on Twitter, how has that been for you? Do you like the platform? Do you like the interaction style? Is the community very supportive to your idea?
Yeah, so like I love Twitter. Like I may be a little addicted to it, but like it might be a problem. But basically like, I didn't join Twitter until like March, like early March. And I just started off like, I know we're going to talk about like KP's like build in public fellowship as well later, but I just kind of started. And at first I was like super uncomfortable to post because I'm super introverted as well. So like I was like, how much do I share? What do I share? But I realized, early on, like the power of the community on Twitter, especially like between people who are building and people who are kind of interested in the same kind of no code tools. I think the community is very strong. So just kind of started interacting and started making friends and kind of went into the kind of platform with the mindset of making friends. And that really helped. So my strategy to Twitter was not really about the posting, but kind of reaching out to people, seeing if they're open for like a coffee chat. And I think over the course of like the last couple months, like I've talked to like 30, 40 people just from Twitter. So it's just like building a community for yourself. And that's the way I'm looking at it right now. And I think the other thing is like, it's also a little bit impactful because like I want to kind of help other founders who are like, maybe like 2 or 3 steps behind me or like earlier kind of in their stage to kind of get to where I am faster. So it's a great platform to do that and kind of share your learnings.
Very cool. I guess while we're on the topic of community, I wanted to ask, you're based in Atlanta and you're the first guest I've had from Atlanta. So is there any sort of startup community there that you're active in? Are there founders that you meet up with regularly?
Yeah, so I haven't been super involved in the startup kind of space in Atlanta. I'm just like getting started into that stuff. But I know there's like Atlanta Tech Village, which I want to get more involved in. And I know Georgia Tech, which is like a university, they have like a good startup kind of community there. So like, I mean, I don't know whether you have to be like a Georgia Tech alumni, but I'm still trying to figure out the scene. But I think it's definitely growing. Like there are more people coming in, a lot of younger people coming into the city. So hopefully like, it's just going to grow and get better from here.
Super. The other day I saw that you tweeted out, quote, "The key is to show up and take little steps towards your goal every day," which is fairly a common thing for founders and anyone to say when they're chasing new goals. But I'm curious, what are your common blockers to this type of consistency, and what have you tried to do to overcome and get around them?
Yeah, I think, one of the biggest problems I have is like, I think I try to do too many things at once. And I think for me, like really focusing on one thing at a time really helps. And I think once I start something and I kind of, I'm in the stage, I try to do it for like 7 days straight or something. I kind of build up that kind of practice into my routine. I think the biggest thing for me is like having a goal and working towards that goal. And like, the reason I posted that tweet was because of like, I want to train for a triathlon. And, I guess that's like motivation for me to kind of like start working out every single day like I used to. And it applies to like the founder journey as well, right? Like I feel like there's just so many things, especially as a solo founder, you need to take care of yourself. And like, I started off as a solo founder. So it's just prioritizing like really ruthlessly. And I know we're going to go into like full-time job and like, doing things on the side. So I think it's hard to get started, but once you get started, it's just about like adding the other routines into your life and making it like a habit. So yeah.
Very cool. Well, I'm happy to hear that you're going to train for a triathlon. That's very cool. I'm training right now for a marathon that's at the end of this month. I'm a terrible swimmer, so I never had the drive to go for triathlon, but I do love running and cycling. I guess we can talk a little bit about that balance then now, because, chasing a big goal like that, also having InterviewJam on the side and also having a full-time job is a lot of things on your plate. So are you just endless source of energy, or how do you fit it all in?
Yeah, I think, it's definitely like, you go through like little stages where you're like losing motivation or you're kind of burnt out. And I just try to kind of stay aware of myself. Like if I feel like I'm going to get to that stage, I kind of just step back from everything I'm doing and kind of just bring my attention back to my own like personal, like, well-being. And I think it's important to recognize because, burnout just doesn't happen like immediately. It kind of like is a process and you kind of just start seeing the signs. And that's something that's helped me is staying aware of myself when I'm doing all these things. And when I do need to take a step back, I give myself permission to do that. But definitely it is like a lot. So like what I try to do for my side projects is I used to do it evenings after work, but then I kind of realized it was kind of burning me out. I didn't have time for like working out or anything. So I decided to flip my schedule around where like, that's why like, I'm up early in the morning. Like I kind of work on my own like side projects and building stuff in the mornings. And then I go to work, and then the evenings I keep it free. So you kind of spend time with your family, like my family, and like kind of make time for like my own well-being, like meditation and everything. And I think the biggest thing is like, trying not to think of like all the different things. Like when you have many different things, like try to focus on one thing. Like, I write down like 6 things that are my priority for the week. And I don't think of anything other than that. Like I just try to go after those 6 things.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I've been there myself where it feels like there's so many things that I want to get done during a day, during an afternoon, during a week, and you don't know where to start. So good idea there. I guess before we move on from Interview Jam completely, what is your goal for it right now? And what are maybe some milestones that you're looking to reach in the near future?
Yeah, so like I think one of the biggest things since launch was like talking to more users, getting feedback, and we've gotten pretty good feedback so far. And I think one of the things that I saw was like a pattern where like Interview Jam was resonating more with one particular group. So I think one big milestone would be like kind of testing out a potential pivot for that like niche audience. And then like the other thing is like, I feel like an idea is really never validated fully unless people are like willing to pay and are paying for it. So I think monetizing, it's never really about the money for me, but I just want to make sure that I want to monetize and kind of make sure that people are willing to pay. So I know whether to like spend a lot more time on it, or like, just move on to a new project or something. So.
Okay. And speaking of, I guess, moving on to new things, you mentioned that you're doing KP's Build in Public Fellowship, or you did that before. Right now, you're doing the 100 Days of No Code Bootcamp. So are there some other tools that you're trying to learn right now? And you also bought a new domain. So what's cooking?
Yeah, I mean, it's like the no code like boot camp. The reason I joined it is like I wanted to learn more about other no code tools other than Bubble. And because I feel like Bubble is not efficient for everything. If you're just building like kind of like a lightweight thing, it's easier to use something like, I don't know, like Webflow or like Softer or something. So just kind of understanding the landscape of no code. And so I think I bought a new domain. The idea is still like a little unclear to me, but essentially it's like a platform to help early stage founders or kind of people who have like a goal of becoming something. Like for example, I've had a lot of people reach out to me asking about data science, and they want to be a data scientist, but they have no one to guide them. So I guess you guys are the first people I'm announcing it to, but it's basically like a platform. It's called Switch Connect, where it's a community built on sharing expertise and building genuine friendships. So we'll see how it goes. It's just like a random idea that I wanted to build out, but yeah. And
Very cool.
so I think that probably will not be built on Bubble. So we'll see what other tool I will use.
Very cool. Well, we'll be eager to see how you build it and what it turns out to be when you do launch it. Let's see. I do want to go back to KP's Build in Public Fellowship because he just had our CTO on his show the other day. The episode came out this week, and we at Paralect have sponsored a couple of his podcasts as well as a new sort of marketing channel that we're trying out. So can you give us an inside look into that Build in Public Fellowship? What were some of your key takeaways, and would you recommend it to other new founders?
Yeah, for sure. So like I think KP's fellowship is like the best kind of investment I've made in my life. And actually it's funny because I didn't have Twitter or anything, I didn't know who KP was until like I came across the Google Doc, like which he had for like his initial like Build in Public Fellowship. And I did a little bit more research and just decided. I had a conversation with him, and then I just immediately decided I'm gonna just join it, take the take a leap of faith and just join it. So I went in with like no expectations. I didn't even know what Build in Public was really. And now that I'm kind of out of the fellowship, completed the fellowship, I think the biggest thing is like the people. Like you have a community of other builders, and like you have like people in venture capital. You have people who are like one of my friends, Rachel, she's doing like mapping sessions where she's trying to help people get clarity on their goals in life. So it's like you meet a diverse set of people and you bring them all together and you're just there to support each other. And KP is like incredible person. He like is the most generous person you'll ever meet. So I think it was really like 100% recommend it to anybody who's interested. Um, it's like I think actually like thinking about it, like when you're starting on your founder journey, it's like hard to kind of find like belonging. Like especially like I work from home. There's not really many startup or people who are interested in startups around me. But when I joined the fellowship, I just felt like I belonged. And I think that feeling itself is like super important when you're getting started because you need people to believe in you and kind of motivate you and cheer you on. And that's what that provided me. So it was incredible. So.
Awesome. All right. Well, community is a huge part of your success, I guess, so far, and anyone's success. But your most popular tweet that I found, at least from the recent ones, or the most engaging tweet, the active discussion came around how do you keep yourself motivated when you feel like giving up? So, what are some of your motivations? You mentioned that you weren't super. You mentioned that you weren't placing a very high value on monetization with InterviewJam. So, what are some of your other motivations if it's not money?
Yeah, so I think, the reason I even wanted to start building things was I'm really like, into like making an impact on other people's lives, like positive impact. When I was like a teenager, I started a nonprofit, which helps like children in India like get like the resources they need in school. But, when I was 16, 17 years old, I didn't really know how to scale anything and it kind of shut down. And that was like a huge disappointment for me. But then I started learning about building products and a product is scalable. You're not scalable, but a product is. So it's like the impact you can have on other people's lives by building a product is like my ultimate kind of motivation to keep going because, you can scale it and you can, really make a difference. So, and regarding the motivation tweet, it was just like a week where I was feeling demotivated and, I just kind of posed that question. I do that a lot. Like I just like sometimes ask like Twitter, like, hey, like this is a question I'm having. Like, how do you do it? And I got some really good, like it helped me too, right? Like I got some new strategies and tactics to deal with it. And yeah, it was really good.
Very cool. Well, what have you tried in terms of those tactics, and what resonated with you?
Yeah, I think like, a lot of people mention like, motivation doesn't really matter. It's about building habits. And I think I agree with that partially. I feel like you need to have a really strong why. So one thing I did was like, I kind of took like my notebook and I just wrote down like, why am I doing what I'm doing? And I think that kind of relates to what I said earlier. But when you're reminded constantly of the why, like, and I kind of put sticky notes on my kind of room area, which kind of reminds me like, hey, like this is why I'm doing this. This is what I need to do. Like, it's a good reminder. And the other thing is also like, building in like little micro habits into your day. Like I think there was like a book, I think it's Atomic Habits, where it's like you put a reminder of something. Like if you want to work out, you put gym clothes like near your door or something. I don't know why you would put it near your door, but like put gym clothes where you would like um but like, I've been trying to do that. So it's like little cues and reminders for myself. And it's like surprisingly it's helpful because I think it's making it more of a habit rather than motivation. So yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I think I read that book as well a while ago, and I think the main things for me was the reminders, but also decreasing like the barrier to starting whatever you
Yeah.
want to
Mhm.
do regularly. So I guess that's why the gym clothes are out somewhere
Yeah.
where you can see them.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's very cool. Let's see. We talked a little bit about the balance and the way that you've um, fit in all the stuff that you're working on along with your job. I was curious whether there's anything from your data science work or education or work experience that you feel like helps you as you're building these side projects. I'm not a data scientist. I don't really know the field that well, so I don't have a lot of context for this. But is there any carryover in skills that you have there?
Yeah, I actually think it's there's definitely like some carryover, but I think it's more of like kind of the motivation to figure things out. I feel like so the area where I work in, it's like cybersecurity data innovation. So like a lot of the stuff I do at work is kind of talking to other teams, or like my manager and I, we both talk to other teams and kind of understand their problems and kind of take an abstract idea or abstract kind of business problem that they're facing and kind of turn it into an analytical solution. And I think that's really useful when you're building products too, because it's basically like talking to your users, extracting like kind of the real problem, getting to the core problem that they're facing. So that's one thing. The other thing is like just the aspect of the mindset of figuring things out. Like, at work, nothing's really clear cut. Like in school, like for data science, you get your super clean data sets. You can just start analyzing, start building models. But at work, you kind of have like everything's a mess, basically. Like you have to kind of extract what you need, and you have to, clean it up yourself, and you have to kind of ideate and kind of think of the problem you're solving a lot more. So I think it just kind of instills like it instills like kind of the mindset of like, hey, like I have to figure this out and I have to solve this problem. And I think it's very like similar because it's very ambiguous when you're building products as well. Like you don't know what you're doing unless you talk to people and get feedback very fast and test and iterate. And it's the same kind of mindset for both my work and the product building. So that really helps. That's like a crossover. That's like the main kind of intersection between the two. But yeah, I think it's just like, working hard, figuring it out, and kind of dealing with ambiguity in like the best way possible.
Super. I guess we'll wrap up a little with a little bit about what you're working on now or what's next. So are there any new features or things that you'd like to put into InterviewJam? Or if not, are there any tools that you're really excited about learning in the next couple weeks on the 100 Days of No Code?
Yeah, I think it's not really anything new, but like I think it's more of making the platform more efficient, and that requires a lot more like the user flow needs to be changed. So I think it's more thinking through that, and I feel like, when you're getting started, you don't really learn the stuff in school. You kind of have to figure it out, kind of learn how to do that stuff. So new features, I think it's more of like making the platform more integrated. Right now, like when I was building it, like I feel like it looks like, I was learning how to build it when I was building it. So I feel like it needs to be a little bit more cohesive and kind of smooth for the user or like the people using it. So that's pretty much what's next for InterviewJam, and like, eventually like looking at partnerships. Renee and I have talked to like a couple like, companies that kind of sponsor or like kind of have their product in universities, and like potentially looking at a partnership there. So, so that's pretty much what's next for that. And new tool, I'm not really sure. I'm still learning. I'm still trying to figure out. I think it's more learning the landscape. Like I think there's like Zapier. That's like, I want to kind of learn about automating and like integrations. That's the next thing I want to learn. So
Very cool. All right. Well, I don't think I have any other questions, although I guess since the topic is so hot right now, I shouldn't let you go with asking you a little bit about the AI part of InterviewJam. So how did you find integrating, is it GPT-4 or ChatGPT into the product, and what sort of, I guess, function does it play in InterviewJam?
yeah, no, that's a great question. And I started building InterviewJam with the OpenAI like original like GPT-3 before like AI just kind of like blew up, like just completely went crazy like with everyone. So the role it plays actually is like, when you are applying for a job, you kind of want to save the job. You have that functionality, and it analyzes the job description and like gets you the keywords, and you can write your custom cover letters and stuff. But I think the main thing is a lot of like people who are looking for a job, especially international students, like it's hard for them to tell their story. And kind of the behavioral section of the interview is like super difficult for everybody. So it's like, how do you tell your story in the most effective way? So you just need to put in like your like key points and stuff, and it crafts you like a nice little story or script you can use during your interview. But I think that feature is going to evolve into something more as well, because right now it's just like I'm basically like a prompt. But AI, like I think it's moving so fast, like you kind of have to evolve really fast. And I think with the plugins and stuff, like I think it's going to be interesting to see where like it goes, and also like how like you can kind of think. Like I feel like, okay, sorry, this is totally random, but I feel like with AI, like you kind of have to think like, what is it going to look like in 10 years and kind of think about how to build something that's going to like, be like big in 10 years. And that's kind of the mindset I'm kind of taking with this. And I don't know if InterviewJam is like that product, but I definitely know it's going to be like totally insane in 10 years. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's a very exciting time. I think I'm interviewing 3 founders today, and all of them have AI as sort of a backbone or part of their product. So it's definitely hot. Well, thank you so much, Maya, for your time. I know it's early there in Atlanta. It's been really great to meet you and hear about InterviewJam. I will drop links to your socials. I believe Twitter is probably the best way to follow you, right? So what's your handle there?
It's Build with Maya.
Yeah. All right. So everybody go follow Build with Maya on Twitter and find out what she's building next. We got a sneak peek here, but I'm sure she'll share the journey more as she goes along. So thank you so much, Maya, and everybody have a great weekend.
Awesome. Thank you so much.